The international break won't stop our panel of betting experts from searching for value angles this week. We've got a tip for Thomas Tuchel's first match as England boss and a look at how punters should approach Europe's worst international side. For the time being, at least, those are two different teams. All that and more on today's show. Hello and welcome to the Football Betting Pod powered by Betting Expert. I'm your host, Daniel Jenkins, joined as ever by Betting Expert's football editor, Sam Ingram. How are you doing, Sam?
Hello, Dan. All good. How are you?
I'm great. I don't mind the international break now. I've sort of come around to it a little bit. I think the extra Champions League matches, the extra FA Cup matches, the moving of the Carabao Cup final, I was oversaturated, and now here we are, international break, day 3. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying not having any midweek football to look out for. How about you?
A recharge of the batteries, yeah. No, I'm the same. Obviously, we're doing 2 pods a week, doing a lot of work on the site and stuff, so it does get a bit much. But from just like a punting perspective, I quite like the international break. Lots of games across lots of continents and regions. There's a lot to get stuck in, and there's usually quite a lot of like narrative to unpick as well. I've got a bet today in Africa, another bet, yeah, like you mentioned, probably the worst team in Europe. Like there's a lot of bets out there if you really kind of dig down and have a look. So I don't mind it.
Yeah. When will the football schedulers think of the podcasters? You know, it's
I know.
It's just unacceptable in this day and age. Back again today, Scott Thornton. How are you doing, Scott?
All good, all good. Yeah, I think I've mellowed to the international break as well. As you say, double game weeks was getting a bit jarring towards the end. So it's now nice to look at England versus Albania for a change.
Back on the show again, Jack Wright. How are you doing, mate?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, and I'm reveling in the fact that there's intense scrutiny on Rotherham versus Wickham and that kind of game over the international break as well.
Yeah, it's getting top billing on this podcast. But before we get to that, let's have a quick chat about England because, yeah, it's an international break. New manager, as I said at the top of the show, Thomas Tuchel, his first match in charge. Sam, how are you feeling about the sort of appointment at the moment? What's the state of play?
For me personally, I think it's quite exciting. Like many will scoff at England and international breaks, but I personally love it. Like I follow them whenever I can. I was at the Euros in the summer just gone. So for me, it's an exciting time. We've got a manager with genuine pedigree in tournament football, not so much on the international stage. But yeah, we're soon going to find out how transferable Tuchel's skill set is. His Chelsea connections and previous work in Germany with our best striker is handy. So I like the thought of that. And the squad's obviously the main talking point at the minute. You'll instantly hear Jordan Henderson, Cole Walker, maybe even Marcus Rashford, and you probably think like, oh, we're back to picking the bigger names rather than players on form. You've got people like Morgan Gibbs-White, who is now in the squad, who wasn't picked. And yeah, there are questions there to be asked, but what we've got to bear in mind is that this is Tuchel's first England squad. So he's going into camp craving some kind of stability from a previous reign, which performed pretty well on the whole, reached finals and major tournaments. And Tuchel will want that again. Obviously, he wants that experience, and that's why Dan Burn, Henderson, Walker, they're all in the squad because they are all invaluable in the dressing room. So he's going to quite quickly build a squad in his own image that he thinks is capable of winning a major tournament. So I wouldn't look at this first squad and see, Henderson, Walker, etc., and be too disheartened. I think it was always going to be the case. He's not just going to come in and pick a team of, like 24 players under the age of 26, all on form and none of the kind of stalwarts of England camps in years gone by. It was never going to look like that. But to be fair on that, like I was a bit gutted not to see the main standout for me was Jared Branthwaite. I spoke about him a lot before the Euros. I really want him in that squad. I think he trumps both Gerald Kwanzaa and Levi Colwill for me. Lewis Hall, obviously injured, couldn't make the squad, and Adam Wharton as well. I think he should definitely be in the team. I want him at the World Cup. I want him probably starting games. If not starting, I want him in the squad. But really good to see Lewis Skelly in there as well. Those were my kind of 3-4 overarching thoughts when I saw the squad. But overall, I think he's going to do well. The England team needed a boost. It was time to move on from Southgate. It could have gone earlier than he did, but he did get us to a Euros final where the better team won. So, exciting times.
Yeah, it's a good point, Sam. I mean, objectively, this is coming off the back of England's most successful period, sustained period, consistent period in terms of tournament performance just after Gareth Southgate, during Gareth Southgate's time in charge. Jack, I'll throw it over to you. Were you surprised of how many sort of returning players there were, or as Sam said, do you think Tuchel's just kind of wants to see the state of the squad as it is before making any sort of big changes to the players he's bringing and including in the squads?
Generally speaking, no, I wasn't surprised. I think there was a couple in there. Sam's really touched on it. I think that Jordan Henderson was the one, but I think he's in the change room, as we said, experience, been there, done it as a leader, which are valuable, and we've all talked about it as well in the past. That when you go to a World Cup and you've got that camp, you need those players that are kind of happy to be around the squad, are decent bench and squad players that can keep the morale high, can be a kind of a conduit to the playing staff and the coaching staff as well. So no, not really. It's an 18-month contract that Tuchel's got. So he's got we know what his remit is, go and win the World Cup. So he's not here to develop young talent. That's not his role. He's going to go and look to put a squad together that's going to be capable of challenging in those World Cup finals. And I think in this first instance, he wants to put a squad together that's going to go and win games, because if he doesn't win these initial couple of games, or even 3 or 4 games, the press, who are currently very much on his side, will, of course, as we well know, very much soon turn. So I think it's very important that he goes and gets a positive result, positive wins, get those players in that he knows he can trust and rely on. And as I say, he's all about that World Cup in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, it won't take much for the English press and the English media to turn against him. I don't think he's not attending as many matches in person, is he? And apparently he was born in Germany, I'm reading, so it's like
Wow,
outrageous. Okay, leave it up to the sole Welsh tipster on the panel to get the first tip for England. So Scott, do you want to take it away with your pick for England versus Albania?
The boys have covered on it a lot. There's a lot of unknowns coming into this game. We're really not sure what we're going to see from England. Will they play the 3-4-3 shape that we sort of saw from Tuchel when he was manager of Chelsea? There was a lot of 4-2-3-1 at Bayern. I know formations are less sort of important nowadays, and it's very much about shapes, but still, it'd be very different personnel in those 11s depending on what he opts to go with. But I think what is certain in this game against Albania is they'll dominate possession. So I'm going for under 31.5 throws and under 25 free kicks as a double at 1.8. England matches, the last 10 have seen an average of 26.9 throws. That won't come as a surprise. They're so accomplished in possession. They've got the midfield players. They can really just control a game and win the ball back quickly. They've got the energy. All these players have played for teams that are well versed in the counter press in modern age. And England dominate as a result. And that domination also means their matches have seen very few fouls, with an average of 19.4 in the last 10. Obviously, the free kick market includes offsides, and the last 10 have averaged 2 offsides. So I'm not really worried about that in terms of the under 25.5. And I just think, regardless of the formation that Tuchel goes for, we're going to see a packed midfield with the likes of Foden, Bellingham, Rice, Curtis Jones maybe in line to start. Henderson could even start, to be honest, because there's not too many of those holding players in there without the likes of Wharton, and he was the surprise and omission for me purely based on that. But I wouldn't be surprised to see England just go and hammer Albania here. They beat them 5-0 in 2021 in November at Wembley, and there were 27 throws and 21 free kicks in that match, so this bet landed with ease. Tuchel's most recent work was obviously at Bayern. Last season, Bayern matches saw 33.74 throws on average, above the line set here, but the second fewest in the Bundesliga that season, where the league was averaging 39.42 throws, which is way above the Premier League, which the average is down to about 33. Bayern matches last season also the fewest fouls in the Bundesliga with 18.32. So in terms of stylistically, I think we're going to see more of the same. Fully in control. He's worked with some of these players before, whether it be his time at Chelsea. We've seen a lot of them closely, even the ones he didn't work with, and obviously Kane was with him at Bayern last year anyway. So more of the same. England in control. I think they'll comfortably beat Albania. There'll be a few players who are vying for their place in the squad, and it should be one-way traffic, which then lends itself nicely to unders throws and unders free kicks.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of uncertainty about how bettors should kind of approach this Thomas Tuchel's England, but given the squad that he's named, Scott, and you went back into Tuchel's history as a club manager, how much has your bet been influenced by the decision in the squad of the players that were brought in? The fact that we are, looking at the names on the sheet, it'll probably be kind of more of the same for the time being, at least.
To be honest, it's interesting to see, but it's had very little influence. This has been something I've sort of targeted in England games, whether it was under Southgate, Carsley. They're just a very, very talented team. And in international football, you do get these mismatches. But regardless, even in the Premier League, the top teams are capable of suffocating the game. City matches, for example, I know obviously they're not at their best this season, but over the past few seasons, the throw numbers have been very low and the free kick numbers have been very low when Manchester City take to the field. And I think that trend carries over into the England national team, regardless of who the manager is, because they're looking to play that same sort of suffocate your opponent's style and sustain attacks. So it's an interesting trend overall in football. And regardless of who the England manager is, I think it's prevalent. But Tuchel in particular is world class, and he'll know exactly what his team have to do to suffocate the opposition.
Yeah, it's a good little insight, a good little way into getting into some of these international matches that are perhaps pretty big mismatches in terms of player personnel. Scott's first bet, under 31.5 throws and under 25.5 free kicks in England versus Albania. That's a 1.80 with a full unit on that. Sam touched upon it at the start of the show, but do you want to talk about who you believe are the worst team in European international football?
Yeah, I'm going to stick my neck out on the line here and say it's probably Liechtenstein. Like, if you look at the FIFA World Rankings, that will tell you it's San Marino. But if you look at their two most recent Nations League fixtures, San Marino just beat Liechtenstein twice, home and away. They beat Liechtenstein 3-1 at Liechtenstein in their own backyard. So that was San Marino's first ever away win. Liechtenstein are the only nation to ever lose to San Marino in an official fixture. Therefore, yeah, probably the worst team in Europe, but that is to be expected. So I'm not going to come on here and just say, look, they're crap and back against them, not in so many words anyway. But Liechtenstein, it's a doubly landlocked microstate with a population of 40,000 people in the Central European Alps. And in terms of sporting heritage as a nation, Liechtenstein has 10 Olympic medals, all in downhill skiing, and 7 of those 10 medals were won by the same family. So there is no footballing structure or pyramid in Liechtenstein. Their football clubs play in Switzerland. There is nothing about Liechtenstein that suggests they should be a footballing nation with any real clout, and they're not. And that's fine, but that does typically present opportunities when priced incorrectly or when there's a chance to maybe lump a couple of selections together in a bet builder. So today, I'm just going to stick to the Asian handicap line of North Macedonia minus 2.25 Asian handicap. So Liechtenstein versus North Macedonia, real glamour tie. But I think the Asian handicap line is a bit too small. It probably should be minus 2.5 at a minimum. And I do get it's a big handicap, but this Liechtenstein team is really quite poor. And North Macedonia are quite handy. If you go and look at North Macedonia's stats in the recent Nations League, I think they won 5 out of 6. They were unbeaten, drew to Latvia. Was it Latvia?
Faroe Islands.
Faroe Islands. Drew to the Faroe Islands in the first game, then won their following 5 after that. They're pretty handy. And here, this is a step down in class against Liechtenstein, so I'm willing to take the handicap on. That's at 1.95 Bet365.
Yeah, they didn't concede a goal from open play in those 6 Nations League matches. North Macedonia, which is pretty good going. They dropped that point at the Faroe Islands, but it's via the penalty spot. So looking at this bet, Sam, I assume you're leaning more on Liechtenstein bad rather than North Macedonia good, right? It's because looking at the recent results, this bet would have only been a full win in one of their last 5 wins and probably one of their last 20-30 matches for North Macedonia.
I think it's important, especially now with the Nations League, as you're grouped with nations at a similar level. It's important to really take that on board. So if you look at Liechtenstein's games over the past year or so, you'll see they've scored 2 in Gibraltar. They kept a clean sheet against Gibraltar. They scored against San Marino. So you could look at that and think, they've got a bit about them. They can find the back of their net. They can keep it tight at the other end. But it's just really not the case because they're playing teams at a similar level. And the same goes for North Macedonia, also playing teams at the level. But now when stepping up in class, when operating in the qualifying tournaments, it gets really quite bleak for Liechtenstein. So if you go back and look at the Euro qualifiers a couple of years back, they lost 10 out of 10, conceded 28 goals in 10 games. They scored once, which was an absolute screamer and did lose me money. Iceland beat them 7-0 at home. So it was pretty grim. That's Iceland, 7-0. So it's pretty grim, really. And I'm expecting more of the same this time around in the World Cup qualifiers. They should be the type of team where the other teams look at it and think, right, there's 3 points there. Let's rack up a score. Let's really improve that goal difference. They are that team. And if you look at the similarly ranked opponents compared with North Macedonia in 2023, for Liechtenstein, yeah, Bosnia, they went off at a minus 2.5 Asian handicap, only won 2-0, didn't land. Slovakia went off at a minus 2.75 Asian handicap, only won 1-0, also didn't land. Portugal went off at a minus 4.75 Asian handicap, only won 2-0. So Liechtenstein opponents weren't getting the handicaps over the line. They weren't overcoming the handicaps, but it was really, really unlucky. And I actually watched most of these games because I always bet on Liechtenstein. And these teams were taking like 20, 30 shots at a time. And how Portugal ended 2-0 is one of life's big mysteries, honestly. Like it was crazy. Some kind of force field around that Liechtenstein goal. But they're not going to be able to ride the luck so often as they did in that qualifying campaign. You see that 7-0 in Iceland. That's how most of these games probably should have gone. So I think North Macedonia, they're going to arrive. They're probably going to hit 20 to 30 shots. They'll have 70+% possession, and we just need them to score 2 goals without reply, or rack up a 2-goal margin, and that'll get us half of our stake back and hit 3 goals, hit a 3-goal margin, and that'll have us quite comfortable. So as usual, I'm always comfortable backing against Liechtenstein, and it's the same again this international break.
North Macedonia will kind of fancy it as well. I know obviously they're not a big nation themselves, but that group is I wouldn't say wide open. Obviously Belgium are the clear favourites. Wales will certainly fancy it, but it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility for North Macedonia to go and get a result against Wales at home next week. So if they can get a big result, obviously an emphatic victory here, it probably puts them in a good stead. They'll think maybe a top 2 places is doable.
Well, I think in that group, Scott, like if you don't get 6 points against Liechtenstein, I don't think you're going to qualify. And obviously there'll be some teams really racking up the score. So the goal difference obviously comes into it as well. And if you get a nice sizable goal difference against Liechtenstein and other nations don't, obviously that pretty much acts as an extra point, doesn't it? So there is incentive here to open the World Cup qualifying campaign in some style. And I think they'll do that.
Yes. Looks good, Sam. Looks good. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Sam's first pick of the show is North Macedonia minus 2.25 in Asian handicap market versus Liechtenstein. That's a 1.95 with the full unit on that. Jack, away from the glitz and glamour of international football to the English Football League, what have you got?
Indeed, yeah. I can't compete with Liechtenstein at all, I'm afraid. I'm off to Wales. It's Wrexham versus Stockport. Over 2 goal line is my play here at 1.9. First of all, the line just stands out incredibly. It's very rare in English football we get a 2 goal line to attack at such a backable price as well. It's not easy for making a sacrifice that this is a poor price. This is 1.9. So for me, I can see at least 2 goals in the game. Therefore, we're going to get a free swing at 3 or more. So for those that aren't used to playing the goal line, obviously, if there are exactly 2 goals in this, you get a full refund of your stake. 3 or more gets the full win. So these 2 sides have developed a bit of a rivalry over the last few seasons, of course, dating back to when Stockport pipped Wrexham to the National League title in 2022. Wrexham managed to then win that title the following year. Both sides were then in League 2 last season. And again, it was nip and tuck, both vying for promotion. Both the home sides won when they met, 5-0 for Stockport, 2-1 for Wrexham. And ultimately, both got promoted. So now in League 1 and again, vying for promotion into the Championship, which would be an incredible achievement for both sides. Let's make no bones about it. So what I would say is that the landscape in League One is so tight that neither of these sides can afford to draw this game, let alone lose it. So that means for me, they're both going to look to attack. They're both going to look to go and win it, which of course opens up the fact that there's going to be goals in it. I can't see it being a real tight and cagey affair. So painting the landscape in League One, we see Wrexham moved up to second place at the weekend with a victory over Wycombe. Wycombe then reclaimed that second spot with a win on Tuesday night, a crazy game, a 3-2 win at Rotherham. And there are 6 points between second place, currently Wycombe, and Stockport in fifth, who have a 5-point gap to seventh place. So it's so tight. There's going to be lots of twists and turns over the course of this campaign. But obviously a win here for Stockport would put them bang in the race still for automatic promotion. One of the other key elements of this is there's a very rare week to rest, recover and prepare for the game for both these sides. Wrexham in particular have had an incredibly tight schedule. Since February the 1st, they've had 6 midweek fixtures in that campaign, which does just make it obviously tired as far as the players are concerned, but less time to prep, get ready and go to battle. So I think the fact that they've got that time here will lead it to being a more entertaining, attack-minded fixture. We need firepower, of course. Wrexham have certainly gone to town on trying to get that sorted for themselves in January. They brought in Sam Smith from Reading, a proven goal scorer at this level. Had been did well last season for Reading, had been scoring goals regularly for them this season. He's got 14 for the campaign now. His transition to Wrexham's been seamless. He's carried on scoring goals, got the winner at the weekend as well. They also brought in Jay Rodriguez, who we're used to seeing playing for Burnley in the Premier League and in the Championship. He's come in to help get them over the line, and which has kind of then reduced the leading players that were there, the likes of Stephen Fletcher, Elliot Lee, Jack Marriott, now sitting on the bench waiting in the wings to look to have an impact. I've not even mentioned Ollie Palmer and the poster boy for the Wrexham Revolution, the talisman over the last few seasons in Paul Mullen, who's not even been in the squad for the last 8 or so games. But all that comes to pass is that they've failed to score in just 2 of their 19 games at home. Stockport, their main issue was going to be, apparently, to replace Louis Barry, who at the start of the season scored 15 goals in 23 games for them. Top scorer not only for them, but also in League One. He obviously was recalled by Aston Villa, subsequently loaned out to Hull, and they have sought to go to Iceland for their replacement in Benoni Andresen, who's scored 3 goals in his first 120 minutes of League One football. So he's gone in quite quickly there. He's only made 1 start. That was last weekend as well. What they have done is done exceptionally well since Barry's departure. 14 league games played, 8 wins, 4 draws, 2 defeats. Kyle Wotton's been again in the side, a player that scored 20 goals last season, was out of the side. Isaac Olafai, he's come in and scored goals. Will Collar will always chip in, and they've got Ollie Norwood pulling the strings, who we've seen performing well for Sheffield United, again in the Premier League and in the Championship in recent seasons. They've only failed to score themselves in 3 of 19 road trips. So I think there's a bit of recency bias because of Wrexham's last couple of home performances, which has seen this line go. But how I look at it is we need over 1.5 goals here to make sure we're not going to lose. That's the first port of call. 22 of 37 Wrexham games have seen at least 2 goals. That's 60%, rises to 63% at home. One of the lowest in the league, but still well over that half 50% mark. And prior to those last 2 games, they had 2-1 defeats to Leyton Orient and 3-2 to Stevenage at home. 6 of their last 9 have seen at least 2 goals. 5 of those going on to see at least 1 more, and therefore giving us a full return on the win on this bet. And those slightly lower numbers are counteracted by Stockport, who have only 2 teams seen more games go over 1.5 goals than their 30 this season. That's 81% of their fixtures and 16 of 19 on the road. So let's get to that first checkpoint, 2 goals, and then we can look to kick on and get the 3. And I think at 1.9, that's a huge price for an over 2 Asian goal line in English football.
Yeah, it's quite rare to see an Asian goal line set so low for a match like this, Jack. Betsy's in agreement with you. Goal line projected is 2.26 with 1.15 for Wrexham, 1.11 for Stockport. Just looking at recent matches, I'm glad you touched upon both. But both sides are kind of struggling for goals, aren't they? In the league, Wrexham scored 3 in their last 5. Stockport is 4 in their last 5. Is that, what do you think that's down to? Is that, I mean, you said they've reinforced, both teams have reinforced in January, but are you expecting that to start to pick up? Obviously, they're not playing as many matches now. They've had a bit of a rest. There's a week either side of this game for Wrexham. So are you expecting them to just sort of leave it all out there? And maybe we'll start to see those goal line, that those goals start to come in at both ends.
Yeah, I think you've got to look through the sides and say that there's goals in them. So I mentioned it while I was talking through that. Then the fact that the fixture list was so compact, so tight that they were going Saturday, Tuesday over a large period of time. So even with a well padded squad, it's still going to be tough. And it's also getting to that point now, as I mentioned as well, that you've got to go for it. You know, if either of these two sides go a goal down, they've got to go and attack it. And also they'll know that, you know, a win, both these sides know a win will really go a long way to achieving their goals for the course of the season. It's going to be nip and tuck. Obviously, Birmingham are over the hills and far away. We expected that anyway. But those sides underneath them, a couple are going to miss out on the playoffs, and one other is going to make it into the automatic promotion. As to which one those will be, so that just makes it, I think, an open and attacking affair. I don't think it's a case where they're going to shut up shop and look to try and steal something. I think they're both going to be able to look to go for it.
I really like this one in the sense where I was looking at the previous head-to-head. Stockport won 1-0 earlier in the season, but that only tells half of the story. There were 7 big chances created according to Opta in that one, so some very poor finishing. I don't see Lightning striking twice in terms of that. So I think the timing of the game in the season, the fact is so important. Chances created in the reverse fixture, we should see plenty of goals. I like it.
And Jack's right as well. Wrexham have played 8 games in the past month. So 8 games in 4 weeks. It's just absolutely relentless. So yeah, now with looking at the rest of the season, they've pretty much got 5, 6, 7 days in between the rest of their fixtures, Stockport too. And it probably sounds pretty obvious, but the first goal here is really important. Like if that comes early, like these two are both in a frantic race for playoffs. If the first goal comes early, then this could really explode because there is no point in, not going for it if you're the other team. So yeah, I like it. And just an unusually low goal line. 2.0 at that price.
Yeah, it's quite rare to see such a low goal line, as I said. So Jack's first bet is over 2.0 Asian goals in Wrexham versus Stockport. That's a 1.90 with the full unit on that. Scott, let's throw it over to you, pull you back in. Looking at what is probably on paper the biggest match in international football in Europe, at least this week, which is Netherlands versus Spain.
Yeah, it should be an exciting game, but my bet is less than exciting. I'm going for under 30.5 throws and under 28.5 shots. Again, possession-hungry teams in the top of the European game, and that translates into the international teams as well. I do expect Spain to be in control, even though this is far more evenly matched than England, Albania. Spain should probably edge it. The Netherlands had 40% possession and 42% possession when they faced Germany and England, respectively, in the Euros. So I'm looking at those as maybe the similar type of matches here. And there were 22 and 25 throws in those two specified games in the Euros. So I do think under 30.5 is very doable here. Again, just both teams have 11 players who are so accomplished in possession. They'll look to play through any press. There's not going to be any frantic kicking the ball out of play. It's all geared towards retaining the ball and just building pressure. Netherlands' last 10 games have seen an average of 27.1 throws and 24.5 shots. Spain's last 10, 28.1 throws and 27.9 shots. But it's worth noting Spain are having the lion's share of those shots with 18.5 per game on average. I don't think they're going to reach those numbers here. As much as I don't think the Netherlands is as good as they have been in the past, they're good enough to halt Spain's progress in phases and maintain possession of the ball. So I think we could see it go well below that 28.5 shot line. But for now, under 38.5 throws and under 28.5 shots, particularly as it's a first leg. The new format obviously brings that into it. And first legs tend to be more tentative. Okay, it's a bit of an unknown with the Nations League, but we've seen how that affects things in Europe, club European competitions. I just think we'll see a more tame affair, and there's not going to be frantic nature to it like the game that Jack has just mentioned in League One. So under throws and under shots, there's not a great deal to say about it. Two very good teams. Spain, obviously the champions of Europe, but I think they might cancel each other out in a tame game.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, fairly similar bet and reasoning, Scott, but quite a different match to your other tip. So, obviously, as you said, it's it's the big one. It's the UEFA Nations League quarterfinal. So looking at the tie, like if Netherlands are going to progress against what probably the best international team in the world in Spain at the moment, if they are going to progress, they are going to have to get something from this match. Most likely, the first leg being in Rotterdam. So, are you expecting Spain to dominate possession, or do you think Netherlands will just come out fighting and try and nick a result? Because that could potentially play against your bet here, the Netherlands approach.
I think dominate would be a strong word, but I would expect Spain to have 55% of the ball or more. But either way, when we're talking the likes of England, Albania obviously don't have the technicians on the pitch to keep the ball in play and play through a press. So you're really looking for them to have next to no possession as England just dominate. But here you've got two teams that have got very, very capable midfields in particular, the likes of Frankie de Jong for the underdogs in this tie. They're capable of playing through whatever the opposition throw at them. So it shouldn't increase the throw count too much. And in terms of the fact that it is a competitive game, and the 28.5 shots looks better in that sense, because Spain are obviously, they are the best nation in football at the moment. Yamal and Williams and the wide players, they're capable of racking up the shots. So the fact they're playing a decent team does help us here. It's a very different game to the England-Albania match, but the fact that the top national teams are all striving to play a similar way is the thinking behind this one.
In terms of putting a bet on to then watch, like I've said it to Scott off air, this has to be the worst bet of all time. Like in the nicest way, because we know unders is just a terrible watch, but to put throws and shots, so we're probably going to get maybe 50 throws and shots combined, maybe more. So you're going to have like times 50 occasions where you're like, oh, for God's sake, like another throw, another shot, stop shooting from 50 yards, etc. So yeah, in terms of viewing, that's going to be grim, but hopefully it wins.
I've grown to love it, if I'll be honest with you. I'm generally just the slight frustration when the ball goes out of play because somebody misplaces a pass is a fantastic way of watching football.
The masochistic in you, Scott, is quite impressive, to be fair.
Loves
The shot
it.
from 25 yards that goes out for a throw-in is not the one, is it, eh?
It's a good point, though. It is usually quite a good approach to betting, though, isn't it? Because so many people will bet on over on goals, both teams to score because they want to see the exciting things. And that affects the lines and creates more value. So Scott, as someone who clearly hates watching football, is he's playing himself into the betting value. So, good on you, Scott. Good on you. Scott's second pick is under 30.5 throws and under 28.5 shots in the Netherlands versus Spain. That's a 1.80 with a full unit on that. Sam, back over to you. Looking back to another match in League One.
Yeah, so we've got a reduced slate in the EFL and or in England in general, obviously because of the international break. But I did like this one. I really like Charlton at the minute. I've gone for Charlton 0.0 Asian handicap at 1.80 away in Peterborough. So Peterborough, Saturday's hosts, they've been getting results over the line of late. They're still not safe, but it was looking much hairier in recent weeks than it does right now going into the international break after taking 3 points in the Cambridgeshire derby at the weekend. But they were really lucky to get all 3 points. They scored directly from a free kick. Good goal. But Cambridge had 3 big chances to Posh's 0, but they just couldn't convert. And although Peterborough are not safe, they've got a game in hand and they've got a much better goal difference over Burton in the final relegation spot. So I think they're likely going to be not too good, but I think they'll be good enough to avoid that 7 point, pretty much the 7 point swing. The main driver for this bet on the weekend with the draw on our side is Charlton. Nathan Jones's Charlton. I love Nathan Jones. Didn't quite work out at Southampton. Was pretty dismal actually, but we know exactly what he can do with a set of players and a club that buys into his mindset and his demands. And that's what we've got at Charlton right now. They're on a promotion push. They're sat in 4, 5 points off automatics with Wickham wobbling and stuttering their way through games at present. They picked up 3 points last night against Rotherham in the end. The top 2 is a genuine possibility for Charlton. That's what Nathan Jones is aiming for. That's what he's demanding. He's demanding the professionalism to get over the line, to get them automatics. And that means that every game that Charlton feature in now, Peterborough on the weekend included, There's going to be a sold out away end. Over 2,500 will travel, but every game now it's a massively important game for Charlton. They can't afford to drop many points. They certainly can't afford to lose games, especially against teams right at the bottom of League One. Under a manager that simply won't let up. You'll see him on the sideline kicking and heading every ball. They beat Wigan on the weekend. It was the second biggest home attendance of the season, so the fans are really buying into this promotion push under Jones as well. Matty Godden got a brace, nearly a hat-trick. He's a really good striker at this level. That's 12 League One goals and counting this season. He mentioned post-match that his teammates like to call him the sniffer dog, because those are the kind of chances he sniffs out and feasts on, which I thought was brilliant. I like that. And for Peterborough in general, the last game they lost was actually against Charlton in February, 7 games ago. So Charlton were much better team on that day, irrespective of Peterborough's red card. And Charlton have lost 2 of the last 19 games since the start of December. One of them was at St Andrews versus Birmingham, so I think that's just one of them. So to get the draw on side here for a team desperate to win, to keep pace, and with the quality to do so, they're proving that at the minute, week in, week out. It's something I'm willing to take a position on heading into the weekend with the restricted amount of games we've got to bet on in England.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pick-em as far as Betsy is concerned. 1.23 projected goals for Peterborough, 1.25 for Charlton. So Sam, looking at the recent form of both of these teams, you touched upon Peterborough's good run of form at the moment. They haven't lost a home match since last year, since December. So admittedly, they've only played 5 games at home in the league. But are you concerned that maybe this is a tougher test than maybe Charlton have faced in recent weeks?
Yeah, maybe. And to be fair, like I think we can all agree that Peterborough probably shouldn't be. I haven't got a table up in front of me, but they probably shouldn't be just outside the relegation zone. They've had a pretty poor season, so they're not a team of that ilk. They're not, a relegation. Well, they are a relegation threatened team, but they've got players that means they probably shouldn't be. So yeah, there is concerns there. It's not ideal, but with the draw on side, I am comfortable taking it. And the other thing that I really like is I think set pieces might be the difference in Peterborough on the weekend. If it's low margin, if it's a low scoring games, as it usually is with Charlton, because Charlton are really quite good at set pieces. And I know it's a focus for Nathan Jones. They're a big team. They score frequently from them. They scored again against Wigan on the weekend from a free kick. I think they floated it in back post and it was headed back across to Godden, who sniffed that out and popped it in. So Charlton have created 18.69 XG from set pieces alone this season. And now they're coming up against a Peterborough team who are the second worst team at defending set pieces in the whole division. If you go off set piece goals conceded as the metric to lean on, they've conceded 20 from 36 games, 20 goals, 20 set piece goals from 36 games, which is terrible, really. 18.03 set piece XGA from the 36 games to this point for Peterborough, so not good. So if it is low margin, if it is 0-0, if it's a game of not too many chances, it might take a set piece to unlock the deadlock. And if it doesn't, if it ends 0-0, if it ends 1-1, then we'll get our money back. But I would love nothing more than Charlton have got Macaulay Gillespie, ex-Plymouth, at centre-back, and he plays next to Lloyd Jones, who is actually from Plymouth. If one of them can get in the box, 90th minute, rising like a salmon to, backstick to get a 1-0 winner, that would really do me. I would really like to see that. So, yeah, over to you, Gillespie.
Gold card in play is what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
really like this one as well. I think Charlton are absolutely flying at the moment. Kind of goes without saying, really, to be fair, but they've really got in the mix. And Nathan Jones is coming into his own, isn't he? And the sound bites are going to come thick and fast as that gets closer. The Blue Water one recently was awesome, brilliant, wasn't it? Can't go bowling. Make sure your diet's right. No going to Costa in Blue Water. High fiving. Oh yeah, perfect stuff. So may they continue. So, yeah, no, good spot here, I think, for Charlton to get the job done again. Keep the pressure on at the top.
Sam's second bet, Charlton +0 versus Peterborough. That's a 1.80 with a full unit on that. Before we go into Jack's last one, I do want to give a shout out to Betsy. I always put the Betsy projections out if they are available, which they are for all of the EFL. Betsy's got a fantastic read on League One this season. 13 bets placed, 9 winners. plus 4.82% ROI profit and plus 35.5% ROI on bets this season. Best bet for this weekend is Exeter plus 0.75 at Lincoln. Want to keep an eye on.
These bets as well, they always sound like they never sound that appealing. Last week, obviously, she went for Tranmere away at Bradford. I was thinking she's lost her marbles here. And then obviously Tranmere get a 1-0 win away at Bradford. Bradford 110 on the bounce. And yeah, so just goes to show she's quite good.
The one that done me was West Ham at the Emirates a few weeks ago, and I was like, West Ham ain't getting a result there. And I know the red card out, but they had 3 points. I think the handicap was maybe 1.25. It was done anyway before the red card.
The week after that, she had Leicester against the Leicester handicap against Chelsea as well, and that was 1-0 Chelsea, wasn't it? And the handicap was like +2. So
no, I just wanted to bring it up as League One is one of the best performing leagues this season. Just wait until that Polish Superliga episode comes up, because we're looking at a plus 91% ROI at the moment.
Wow.
Stand by.
We'll get to that. Jack, over to you for your second single, please.
Yeah, well, here we go. What could go wrong having a bet on the favourite at Cheltenham? Well, here we go. Cheltenham versus MK Dons. Cheltenham to win at 2.4 is the selection. And a large part of this really is just a price play. MK Dons are a side that I've had a close eye on throughout the season. The main reason for that being is that for the second season running, they were my anti-post pick to win the title, or at least get promoted, as per my betting expert article and the anti-post article there. And for the second season running, they have absolutely fallen well short. This season has been an absolute catastrophe for them. It's been a shambles. I thought Mike Williamson seemed a great fit for them. That possession-based style of play, patient build-up. It was kind of in the ilk of Russell Martin, which was successful at MK Dons. They flattered to deceive. It looked like they were going to be there or thereabouts. They kind of got in the promotion places, then fell away wildly, which led to him leaving that job to go to Carlisle. Scott Lindsay was the man to come in and replace him again, who done sensational work last season, taking a Crawley side that were relegation favourites up into the playoffs, through to the Wembley final, and ultimately into League One, where they've still got a chance of survival, which is testament to what he's done there as much as anything. But that front foot attacking style, the aggressive press, just didn't work out again, and he's already gone. He's moved on as well, which has now left Ben Gladwin as their third manager. He's got the job until the end of the season, interim manager. So we've not got a lot of his work to go on. Only 3 games he's had in charge since Scott Lindsay's departure. But if you're looking for new manager bounce, if you want to put your hat on that kind of thing, not the place to go. Yes, they won their home game. That was against Morecambe, though, one of a rapidly reducing selection of sides that are beneath MK Dons in the table. They're second from bottom, woeful away from home. And so they managed to get a 2-1 win there. But their 2 away games have been really poor. Lost both those games 2-0 to Accrington, and then most recently a 3-0 defeat at Port Vale, which was really, really poor. Gladwin said after the game that it's probably the quietest he's ever heard a dressing room in his time in football, which kind of sums up where they're at the moment. Really despondent. I think they just can't wait for the season to end quick enough. Cheltenham, I think they were talked about as a side that possibly could do back-to-back relegations. It is a train of thought that I do buy into. I do like that kind of process where, especially kind of League One to League Two, it does seem to then follow through. Forest Green did that last season. And in fact, although I'll just damn myself by saying about my MK Dons pick, I'll pick up my betting trumpet and give it a quick blow, because I did actually side with Carlisle as the side that would be more likely to do back-to-back relegations in that aforementioned anti-post article. So that's going quite well at the moment. But yeah, Cheltenham never really looked like they've been in danger, never looked like they were going to be worse or better than that mid-table position where they are at the moment, although the playoffs aren't completely out of sight at this moment in time. They're 8 points adrift, and with 9 games to go. So the reason for the bet, as much as being a price, is they are pretty strong at home. They've only lost 2 of their last 13 in the league at Whaddon Road, and 5 wins in the last 9 as well. And they do tend to take care of the lesser lights in the division, which we've got to put MK Dons in that basket at the moment. So at the start of the season, you'd have put them in the top 5 or 6. At the moment, they're certainly in that bottom half, say even if not lower down. Go into this game in good form as well. To Cheltenham, they've taken 4 points in 2 tricky away games, AFC Wimbledon and Swindon. They were 3-1 up at Swindon as well, who are in good form themselves. conceded a penalty, had a man sent off, and ended up drawing that 3-3. But Michael Flynn's done a good job. He's kind of consolidated in this season. He's got them playing pretty steady football. And I say, if they are going to gate crash the playoffs, they are going to have to start winning a lot of these remaining fixtures. It's going to start here, say against this MK Don side that have written this season off big style. So for me, I think it's a good price. You can water it down if you want to go for like a tie no bet, draw no bet scenario. You're getting about 1.775 last time I checked on that, or any other variant before that. But I'm going with the big one here. I think it's a big price. Cheltenham to win at 2.4.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was any temptation to bring it down, maybe bring it to a draw no bet or a minus 0.25 or something like that, Jack. So glad you touched upon it. But just to sort of underpin MK Dons' situation at the moment. So they're currently on the worst relative form in League Two. So last 8 games, they're taking an average of 0.5 points compared to the season average of 1.17 per game. So they're on the worst relative form of any team in the division. So is there any fear that there's a bit of a correction there? Because recent matches have been abysmal. The record is awful. They're the worst team in the division over the last 8 matches. But is there any worry that maybe things are going to start to even out a little bit and maybe they're not quite as bad as results have suggested?
Not really. I think they've just been consistently poor throughout the season. And so they've had 3 managers that have had a crack at it, and 2 highly regarded. Well, certainly at the start of the season, Williamson's stock's fallen quite a bit since that job. And then what he did at Carlisle, obviously been moved on from there since then as well. Scott Lindsay, so what he did last season was remarkable. You know, they were always going to struggle in League One. So to keep them there or thereabouts in that relegation fight was a decent enough job. He's obviously stepped down to then look to go and effectively, for his eyes, go into a kind of more stable or better framework of a club. And so it didn't work out there either. And we've now got, say, Gladwin in charge, who's literally just holding the reins. He's not going to be the man that will take the job on full time. And I just think that they're in that position. So their away form is atrocious as well. And they're just in that position at the moment where they've been this bad realistically all season, and if anything, is just getting worse. And so they just can't wait for that final whistle on the final game of the season.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the Betsy seal of approval, so you can't feel too bad. Projected goal totals are 1.51 for Cheltenham, 1.26 for MK Dons. So goal difference of 0.24. But Jack is going for Cheltenham. He's going for the big one. He's going for Cheltenham to beat MK Dons. It's a 2.45 with a full unit on that. Let's get on with this week's pod treble. And Sam, do you want to kick us off with the big one in Africa?
The big one in Africa, yeah. I'm going for Ghana versus Chad. I'm going for Chad plus 4.0 Asian handicap. So if I was to ask you guys, like, what do you think the most profitable market is or was at AFCON or Africa World Cup qualifying, what would you think that would be? What kind of approach?
I'd back against goals, but I don't go into it too much. I'd say back against goals. The big teams never seem to deliver the batterings you'd think.
Yeah, I was going to say under whatever the goal line is, or as you've done here, I'm sure you're leading us down the path of a big plus handicap against what are regarded as the bigger lights that don't quite go to town as much as you'd expect.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. And that's exactly why you guys from the pod absolutely bang on. I've actually got no data to confirm or deny that either. It's just that seems pretty logical. So it may actually not be the case. But yeah, under goals, it's typically in games at AFCON or World Cup qualifying, it's typically a shoo-in on most games on the continent. It's all very low margin, tight, scrappy affairs, lots of running, very physical. And for a lot of the nations, there's not like an abundance of attacking collective talents on show to maybe unpick a low block once an opponent retreats into said low block in their own half. So yeah, usually not too many goals. There are some exceptions, of course, but on the whole, not too many. And with Ghana versus Chad on the weekend, to be fair, that attacking talent is definitely there for Ghana. You've got Semenyo, Kudus, Inaki Williams, Sulemana from Southampton. He's quite bright. There is enough to blow Chad away, in all fairness. And I do think they will win. They should win. They'll probably coast to victory. The flight time from Chad to Ghana is 6.5 hours as well. I thought I'd mention that because that was a little bit off-putting, but they actually travelled a few days ago. So they should be absolutely fine. There should be no concerns around traveling or anything like that. So for the plus 4.0 Asian handicap, on Chad. I think it's just too big. Ghana, they might score 6, 7, 8. They might do, but usually football doesn't really work like that, especially in Africa. Like a good team on paper doesn't just simply arrive, score double figures, and then bounce. That usually doesn't happen. 17 competitive games have passed since Ghana last recorded a 2-goal margin victory, let alone the 5-goal margin victory needed for this bet to lose. And this is a Ghana team under severe pressure to qualify for the World Cup. They recently failed to qualify for AFCON. In AFCON qualifying, they played 6. They failed to win any of their games. They scored 3 goals in 6 games, and they conceded 7 in those 6 games. And in their group was Niger, Sudan, and Angola. So for a nation like Ghana, that's unforgivable. Chris Hughton, former Brighton and Newcastle manager, he was in charge for that qualifying campaign, and he's since been relieved of his duties after AFCON qualifying. And Otto Addo, who was previously the coach who Hughton took over, he's now back and he's in as head coach. So it's all a bit of a mess. The players are under pressure. The management team is certainly under pressure. And this is the biggest Asian handicap of all qualifying nations currently on Bet365 for the first round of fixtures in the international break. The next closest is Fiji away in New Zealand on a plus 3.5 line. So Chad at plus 4.0 Asian handicap. Price is coming in a little bit. I think it's at 1.68 now, which is obviously quite short, but for the treble, it's perfect. And you could take obviously a bigger price at plus 3.75. I just think that, yeah, Ghana will probably win, but are they going to rack up a 5-goal margin victory? I'm just not so sure. So yeah, Chad plus 4.0 Asian handicap.
Yeah, interesting. I always try to factor in the sort of travel times with these matches as well. But when you think about it, it sounds like the vast majority of players in the Ghana team are going to be coming from Europe. Whereas I was looking through the Chad squad, a lot of them are playing quite locally anyway. So it doesn't.
Yeah,
really...
I think all of them are from Chad. I'd never heard of any of them. I've never watched Chad play, or yeah, I don't know anything about them really. So this is all very much based on stats and that kind of thinking around, low margin victories, low goal totals in Africa. Hopefully that rings true. And they're obviously minnows. They're bottom of the World Cup qualifying group after 2 games. Not doing too well, but after 4 games, I think actually not doing too well. But hopefully they don't get blown away.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Scott, do you want to bring us in with your submission to the pod treble?
Yeah, I'm talking about Wales versus Kazakhstan. I'm going to back Wales to win and get over 16.5 shots in the match. Wales will be looking at this qualifying group we touched upon earlier, because obviously Sam was talking about the giants of Liechtenstein. But they'll be looking at this qualifying group and fancying themselves. Top spot's not out of the question for Wales, because Belgium are sort of the heavyweight team of the group. And if there is any big team in Europe that Wales have done okay against, it is Belgium. They've drawn their last 2 home games against Belgium. And obviously they've got a famous win over them in the European Championships. They beat them once before that. I think it was the year before they beat them in qualifying or something like that. But anyway, it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility for Wales to go and get a result against Belgium. So beating Kazakhstan and beating them well is massively important. Kazakhstan are 110th ranked in the world. And I think they'll view this as an opportunity to get their campaign off on the right foot. Like most teams in this group, to be honest, it really is wide open. Bellamy's been bullish since he's came in. Under Page, Wales served up some turgid football. They were reactive, played on the counter. But now they're looking to dominate possession. They're averaging 59.5% possession under Bellamy compared to the 49% in the previous 10 games before his arrival. Obviously, Wales still aren't a heavyweight footballing nation. They've got some good players. They'll be without Ampadu, Wilson and Ramsey here, but they'll still have the likes of Johnson and Dan James. And there's definitely talent within that squad. And I think they'll take a positive approach here and play on the front foot. So in Bellamy's 3 home games so far, they've won the last 2. They drew 0-0 with Turkey, but they really should have won that game. They had 4 big chances where Turkey had 0 dominated possession with, I think it was 67% of the ball. So one-way traffic, and as Sam had already touched upon, the Nations League is very, very much you're playing teams of your calibre. So the fact that Wales performed so well, won the Nations League group against teams of their calibre is encouraging. And Kazakhstan certainly aren't of that calibre. Kazakhstan, without winning 8 competitive matches, losing 7 of them. They've conceded 2.88 goals per game in that period, scoring just 1. So one-way traffic again. 4 away games since the start of last year, so 2024. They conceded 24 shots in Norway, 29 shots in Austria, 16 in Slovenia, and 21 in Greece. And okay, Austria, Norway, they're handy teams, but Wales can be a handy team too. And I think that's exactly what Bellamy's looking to achieve. So Wales to win at over 16.5 shots here does appeal, considering the direction that Wales are going in and how Kazakhstan have fared against some decent teams on the road.
Yeah, they've actually been quite enjoyable to watch the last few games, Scott, haven't they? Just shame not to see Harry Wilson in the squad. It's a shame he couldn't be playing because I know he's been in really good form, hasn't he? He scored a fair few goals under Bellamy's. But yeah, Scott's pick for the pod treble is Wales to win and Wales over 16.5 shots. Jack, over to you. Close it off with your selection for the pod treble.
Okay, so this one's a little bit of therapy for both myself and Sam. I'm going with Tranmere double chance at 1.8. Slightly uncomfortable play, but obviously Sam put Bradford forward against Tranmere last weekend on the pod. I put Bradford forward on my EFL article and the betting expert. So let's go with Tranmere this time. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. Sometimes you just have to reassess a side. You have to look, say, adjust your rating slightly to them, especially towards the end of the season where there's kind of the dynamics of what a game means to different sides comes to play. And also, especially with a managerial change, and we have seen that here. Is it down to the tactics that are employed? Is it down to the coaching on the training pitches? Is it simply down to man management? Whatever it is, it did not work for Nigel Adkins at Tranmere, third bottom in League Two table, really risking relegation. The worst away record by a country mile. That win at Bradford was the first. Sorry, Sam, here we go. That win at Bradford was the first in 5 months and a first clean sheet away from home since August, which was on the first away game of the season. But that did mean Andy Crosby, 2 wins, 2 draws from his 4 games in charge. And yes, a really small sample size, but that's what we've got to work with at the moment. And what I like about what he's done is they've not been easy games either. Port Vale, Grimsby, Bradford and Bromley, all sides are either in and around that playoff chase or going for automatic promotion. And they're up against the Fleetwood side, who are probably close to having their season over now. 14th in the table. They're 9 points adrift of the playoffs. They're 19 clear of the drop. It's likely they're going to be in those mid-table positions. And I think the price we're getting here, say, which is 1.8 for a double chance, is because of course, Tranmere's record. You look at the league table, you look at their away form, and it's still there. They are the worst travellers in the league. Fleetwood are tough to beat at home, but they have only lost 3 times, but they've drawn 10 of those fixtures at home. So 68% of their fixtures have either ended in defeat or in a tie. So that does give you plenty of hope. You say you look at Tranmere's away record, 12 points from Apostle 54, but 4 of those have come under Crosby. So lots of green shoots there. And so a win here could possibly see them already well clear of the drop, enough clear to think that they've got the job done. You look at Fleetwood's last recent home fixtures. They've drawn their last 3. Their last home defeat was at that Carlisle side we talked about, who were bottom of the table. And the other side below Tranmere in the table, Morecambe, got a 2-2 draw at Highbury earlier in the season. So double chance for me, big price at 1.8.
Yeah, it looks good. And I know it will make Spotify user Rob109 happy as well, who commented on our recent episode, never ever take Bradford, missing loads of key players. Tranmere in a bit of form too. So I'm not sure if that's one of your burner accounts, Jack, but either way, that looks good, mate. That looks good. Let's, if you put all 3 of those selections together into a treble, you'll get odds of 5.43, which we will be tracking for a quarter of a unit on the pod. So let's have a recap of the singles. Sam, start with you.
And for North Macedonia, minus 2.25 Asian handicap at 1.95 against Liechtenstein. Charlton, 0.0 Asian handicap away in Peterborough at 1.8, and also Chad plus 4.0 Asian handicap versus Ghana, all for 1 unit.
And Scott?
So England versus Albania, under 31.5 throws and under 25.5 free kicks at 1.8. Netherlands versus Spain, under 30.5 throws and under 28.5 shots, also at 1.8, and a unit on both.
And Jack?
Going for over 2 goal line at 1.9 in Wrexham versus Stockport. I'm going for Cheltenham to beat MK Dons at 2.4. And I'm also going for Tranmere double chance at 1.8 in their away game at Fleetwood.
Jack's Tranmere double chance versus Fleetwood, and Sam's Chad +4 versus Ghana, both on the pod treble, along with Scott's Wales to win and over 16.5 shots for Wales versus Kazakhstan. All of those going together into our pod treble for the week with a combined odds of 5.43, which we'll be tracking for a quarter of a unit. If you are going to be using any of the bets from today's show, then please gamble responsibly, only bet in what you can afford to lose. Thank you as ever to Sam Ingram.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott Thornton.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks again to Jack Wright.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for me. We'll be back next week.